Welcome to Karen Stories, where the wildest Karen encounters unfold. Get ready for hilarious, unbelievable, and shocking moments as Karens make the most outrageous demands. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to never miss a crazy story. Let's dive in. I knew the moment she walked in that today was going to be a disaster. My mom, the Karen, was on a mission. I could see it in the way she marched into the store, head high, sunglasses perched on top of her stiffly styled hair like she was some kind of celebrity stepping onto the red carpet. Her lips were already pursed in that "I'm about to make someone's life miserable" kind of way. And my stomach dropped. I had been through this before. Too many times. She dragged me into the store, her acrylic nails clicking against her phone screen, as she typed some furious message to a friend about how incompetent customer service workers were these days. I wanted to sink into the floor. The store was packed. Parents tugged their kids along. Couples whispered to each other while browsing, and employees were scrambling to keep up with the endless flow of people. A perfectly normal, busy day. But for my mother, normal wasn't good enough. Normal was an insult. If things weren't tailored specifically for her convenience, then the entire system was broken, and she was the self-appointed person to fix it. She came to a dead stop in the middle of the aisle. I tried to sidestep, pretending I wasn't with her, but she suddenly spun around and gripped my arm. "Stay close," she said, her voice sharp. "These people don't know how to do their jobs. If I let them, they'd probably try to scam me." I sighed. Loudly. "Mom, can we just hush?" She lifted a perfectly manicured finger and waved down an employee who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The poor guy hesitated for a split second before walking over with the forced smile of someone who had seen way too many Karens in his lifetime. "Hi ma'am, how can I help you?" His tone was polite, neutral, probably his only defense against what was coming. My mother exhaled dramatically. Finally, someone who actually noticed me. "I've been standing here forever." We had been in the store for maybe 90 seconds. She placed a hand on her hip and tapped her foot. "I need to return this." She shoved a crumpled plastic bag into the guy's hands. He opened it cautiously, like he expected a snake to slither out. Instead, he pulled out a pair of shoes. Shoes that had clearly been worn. The soles were scuffed, the material creased, and one of them had a suspicious dark stain near the toe. I closed my eyes. "Oh no," the employee frowned. Ma'am, these have definitely been used." My mother scoffed. "Of course they have. That's why I'm returning them. They're defective." "Defective?" he repeated, tilting his head like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Yes," she snapped. "I wore them for one evening, and look at them. Absolutely unacceptable quality. I demand a full refund." The guy looked at me like maybe I would step in and talk sense into her. I just shook my head slightly. I knew better. There was no stopping a Karen in full battle mode. "Ma'am," the employee said slowly, "we can't accept returns on used items. Especially not ones that have been worn." My mother gasped as if he had personally insulted her entire bloodline. "Excuse me? Are you accusing me of lying?" "No ma'am, I'm just saying." She cut him off with a sharp laugh, her voice rising. "This is ridiculous. Unbelievable. I paid good money for these shoes, and you're telling me I'm just stuck with them? That's fraud. That's theft. Where is your manager?" "Mom," I muttered, my face burning with secondhand embarrassment. She ignored me, her focus locked on the employee, who was now visibly regretting every life decision that had led him to this moment. He opened his mouth, probably to explain store policy again, but she was already storming past him toward the register, shoes in hand, demanding justice like she was leading a civil rights movement. A manager appeared, looking like he had been summoned from the depths of retail hell. My mother launched into her speech again, how she was a loyal customer, how this was an outrage, how she would tell everyone she knew never to shop here again, a promise she had made at least 6 times before. I wanted to crawl under a display shelf and vanish. The worst part? She was going to win. She always won. Because after 10 more minutes of yelling, threatening bad reviews, and making a scene so big that people were starting to stare, the manager caved. "We'll issue a store credit," he sighed, rubbing his temples. My mother huffed. "Well, I guess that'll do." She turned on her heel, victorious, and waved the gift card at me like it was some kind of trophy. "See, honey? You just have to know how to stand up for yourself." I didn't respond. I was too busy trying to disappear into thin air. I thought the embarrassment was over. I thought the storm had passed. I was dead wrong. As we turned to leave the store, my mother, now emboldened by her so-called victory, suddenly stopped in her tracks. Her eyes flickered toward the entrance where a woman and her young daughter were stepping into the store. A normal person would have kept walking. A normal person wouldn't have given them a second thought. But my mother. She zeroed in like a predator spotting its prey. Oh. For God's sake. She scoffed, loud enough for half the store to hear. Can you believe some people? I glanced at the woman, confused. She wasn't doing anything remotely offensive. Just holding her little girl's hand while scanning the aisles. What? I muttered, already dreading where this was going. The line, she hissed. She just walked in, and she's already trying to cut in front of us. I blinked. There was no line. We had already checked out. We were literally leaving Mom. We're done here, I whispered, trying to steer her toward the door. But it was too late. The Karen switch had been flipped. She stormed up to the woman, her heels clicking against the floor with purpose. Excuse me, she said, crossing her arms. Are you seriously just going to walk in and go straight to the front? What kind of example are you setting for your child? The woman blinked in confusion. I'm sorry. You should be, my mother shot back. Some of us have been waiting, you know. We don't just cut in line, like entitled princesses. The woman looked around, as if searching for some kind of hidden camera. I think you might be mistaken. I just got here. Oh, please, my mom sneered. I saw you waltz in like you own the place. Just because you have a child doesn't mean you get special treatment. The little girl, who couldn't have been older than 6, clutched her mother's hand and shrank behind her. The woman knelt down and whispered something reassuring, before turning back to my mother with a forced, patient smile. Ma'am, I have no idea what you're talking about, she said carefully. I wasn't cutting anyone. My mother let out a laugh, a sharp, humorless laugh that sent a shiver down my spine. Wow. Wow. I cannot believe this. Lying in front of your child? Disgusting. By now, people were starting to stare. Employees had stopped pretending to restock shelves and were watching, wide-eyed. A cashier exchanged an uneasy glance with his coworker. I wanted to melt into the floor. Mom, let's go, I muttered through gritted teeth, tugging at her sleeve. But she yanked her arm away like I had personally betrayed her. No, she snapped. This is about principle? 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 She was about to verbally assassinate a random woman over an imaginary injustice. And she had the nerve to call it a principle? The woman, now visibly uncomfortable, sighed. Look, I really don't want to argue. If you thought I was cutting, I apologize. But I really wasn't. Not good enough. My mother folded her arms, shaking her head like a disappointed teacher scolding a failing student. You need to own up to your mistakes. At this point, an employee, a poor, exhausted-looking manager, finally decided he had seen enough. He approached cautiously, like someone trying to break up a fight between two wild animals. Is there a problem here? Yes, actually, my mother said, whirling around to face him. This woman thinks she can just cut in front of paying customers because she has a child. And frankly, I'm disgusted. The manager glanced at the woman, then back at my mother, then at me, probably wondering if I had been raised in captivity. Ma'am, he said in that carefully neutral tone that retail workers use to avoid triggering a nuclear explosion. This customer just arrived. There is no line. My mother gasped. Not a normal gasp. A full clutch the pearls, scandalized. How dare you gasp? Oh. So we're taking sides now? She hissed, narrowing her eyes at him. He blinked. I what? Oh, I see how it is, she said, dramatically throwing her hands in the air. You don't care about real customers. You only care about privileged people who do whatever they want with no consequences. The manager blinked again, looking about 1 second away from quitting his job on the spot. Mom, please, I started again, my voice low, desperate. But she wasn't done. You know what? She said, her voice shaking with righteous fury. I'm never coming back to this store again. A blessed silence followed. For one brief, beautiful second, I thought it was over. But then, the manager, sweet, exhausted, done with this crap manager, gave her a single, slow nod and said, okay. It was the greatest thing I had ever heard. My mother froze. Like a video buffering. Like a robot whose programming had just failed. And then, with a sharp inhale, she grabbed my wrist, yanked me toward the door, and stormed out of the store, fuming. We reached the parking lot, and she whirled around, face red, seething. Can you believe that? That man was so unprofessional. I swear, this country is falling apart. I nodded, hoping she would take it as agreement instead of what it really was, me trying not to explode into laughter. The second she unlocked the car, I threw myself into the passenger seat, gripping my phone for dear life. I had to tell someone about this. Because nobody would believe what I had just lived through. We should have gone home. Any normal person, after embarrassing themselves in front of an entire store, would have taken the loss and left. But my mother? Oh no. That wasn't an option. As we sat in the car, the engine idling, she fumed. Her perfectly manicured nails drummed against the steering wheel as she stared out the windshield. Her face twisted in righteous fury. I can't believe how I was treated, she muttered. First, that woman tries to cut in line like she owns the place, and then that so-called manager has the nerve to dismiss me? After everything I've spent at that store? Mom, I mumbled, gripping my seatbelt like it was my only lifeline. We should just, no. She cut me off, her eyes flashing. No, this isn't over. I groaned, loudly. Mom, please, but she wasn't listening. She grabbed her phone and, with the speed of a seasoned internet warrior, started typing. If that idiot thinks he can treat me like this, he's got another thing coming. I peered over, my stomach sinking as I read the screen. She was already drafting a Facebook rant. Mom, you cannot. Oh, it will. Her fingers flew across the screen, venom practically dripping from her nails. People need to know what kind of trash that store hires. I slumped in my seat, defeated. This wasn't just any post. No, she was tagging the store's official page. She was tagging the corporate office. She was tagging local news stations. She wasn't looking for justice. She wanted vengeance. Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. That's awful. You should demand a refund for your time. Queen. Typical customer service these days. No respect. I had a terrible experience there too. Boycott them. Oh God. She was winning. Fueled by validation, she grinned and tossed her phone into the cup holder. Now, they'll see. For a brief moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, this would be the end of it. She had her drama. She had her attention. We could finally go home, and I could try to pretend I wasn't related to the most insufferable human being on the planet. And then, the unexpected happened. Her phone dinged. She glanced at the screen. Her smirk vanished. What the hell is this? She muttered, opening the notification. I leaned in, curious, and that's when I saw it. The manager from the store had commented back, "Hi, Karen. We're sorry to hear about your experience. However, after reviewing our security footage, we can confirm that you were not in line, nor was anyone cutting in front of you. Our team remained professional, despite your aggressive behavior toward another customer. We hope you have a great day." Oh, no. Her face turned a deep shade of red. That little, how dare they? She started furiously typing a response, but before she could hit send, another comment popped up. Then another, and another. LMAO, imagine making up an entire incident, and getting called out. Karen, sweetie, just take the L and move on. She really tried to cancel a store over a fake story. I'm crying. I stared at the flood of replies, my mouth slightly open. My mother was getting ratioed. This is harassment, she growled, her fingers shaking over the keyboard. They're all attacking me. She refreshed the page, more comments, more laughing emojis. Someone had even screenshotted her original post and shared it, calling it "Karen gets destroyed by facts and logic." No, she snapped, furiously tapping at the screen. This isn't how it was supposed to go. Mom, I said carefully, watching her unravel before my eyes. Maybe you should just delete it. She gasped like I had just suggested she burn down her own house. Delete it? Are you insane? That's exactly what they want me to do. Mom, you're getting dragged now. I'm not. She shrieked, refreshing again. The post had doubled in comments. More shares. Someone had photoshopped a picture of her as a movie poster titled "Karen vs. Reality" with a 0% rating. This was a massacre. Finally, after one last attempt to fight back, a reply that simply said, "Enjoy your minimum wage job, losers." She gave in. She deleted the post. The second it was gone, she tossed her phone onto the dashboard, crossing her arms. Her whole body was vibrating with rage. Unbelievable. This is cyberbullying. I pressed my lips together to keep from laughing. She turned to me, her eyes still blazing. Don't say a word. I nodded solemnly. Wouldn't dream of it. The ride home was painfully silent, except for the occasional huff from my mother, as she replayed the loss over and over again in her mind. By the time we pulled into the driveway, she had already convinced herself of a new narrative. They'll regret this, she muttered, stepping out of the car. One day, they'll see. I will be vindicated. I just grabbed my bag and walked inside. This, I knew for sure, she absolutely would not. I thought my mom had finally given up. I thought we were done. But, of course, I was wrong. The morning after her social media meltdown, She was up earlier than I'd ever seen her awake voluntarily. She sat at the kitchen table, scrolling furiously on her phone, her jaw clenched so tight. I thought her teeth might shatter. Her coffee sat untouched, growing cold. I knew this wasn't good. "Mom," I said cautiously, "what are you doing?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were locked on the screen, her fingers twitching as she read something, probably more people dunking on her disastrous Facebook post. Then she exhaled sharply through her nose, turning her gaze to me. "We're going back to that store." I nearly choked on my cereal. "Excuse me? Why?" "Because," she said, her voice deadly calm, "they humiliated me. And I am not letting some minimum wage employees get the last word." "Mom," I groaned, already feeling the weight of secondhand embarrassment settling on my shoulders. "We got kicked out. You publicly lost. Can we please just move on?" She scoffed. "Lost? Lost? Oh no, sweetheart. That was just round one." I sank lower into my chair. "Oh my God." Before I could protest any further, she grabbed her keys and pointed at the door. "Let's go." I had two choices: go with her and witness the impending disaster firsthand, or stay home and suffer through the inevitable rant when she returned. I sighed, grabbed my jacket, and braced myself for what was coming. The drive was tense. My mom didn't speak, just muttered under her breath and gripped the steering wheel like she was driving into battle. I stared out the window, praying for some kind of divine intervention, a traffic jam, an asteroid, anything to stop this from happening. No such luck. When we pulled into the store's parking lot, my stomach clenched. And then, I saw something that made my heart stop. A sign. A big printed sign taped to the store's front door. "Attention customers. We reserve the right to refuse service to disruptive individuals. Please be kind and respectful to our staff." Next to it was a screenshot of my mother's deleted Facebook post. I slapped a hand over my mouth to keep from bursting out laughing. Oh, this was bad. This was really bad. My mother, however, was livid. "Are you kidding me?" she shrieked, storming toward the entrance. I jogged after her, already regretting every decision that led me to this moment. "Mom, maybe this is a sign." "Oh, it's a sign all right," she growled. "A sign that these people have no idea who they're messing with." Before I could stop her, she shoved open the door with the force of a SWAT team raid. Heads turned. Employees, many of whom had definitely been there the day before, went stiff. One of the cashiers audibly whispered, "Oh no, she's back." A manager, the same one who had shut her down before, stepped forward, his expression already a mix of exhaustion and barely contained amusement. "Ma'am," he said smoothly, "I was hoping we wouldn't see you again." My mother ignored him and pointed at the sign on the door. "What the hell is that?" He glanced at it and then looked back at her, completely unfazed. "Oh, that? It's a general reminder for customers to be respectful." Her face turned scarlet. "That is me post. You had no right to put that up. That is defamation." He raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, you posted it publicly." My mother sputtered. That's not the point." "Oh, but it is," he said, folding his arms. "You tried to smear our store online, and it backfired. Now, if you're here to actually shop, you're welcome to. Otherwise," he motioned toward the exit. "There's the door." Silence. Pure, blissful, humiliating silence. I thought she might actually combust. Her hands clenched into fists. Her breathing was rapid. She looked around, waiting for someone to back her up, to validate her outrage. Nobody did. In fact, I swear I saw one of the employees smirking. That's when I saw it. The shift. My mom wasn't stupid. Delusional? Yes. A lost cause? Probably. But even she could tell when she was outnumbered. Outplayed, defeated. She inhaled sharply, squared her shoulders, and without another word turned on her heel and marched out of the store. I stood there, stunned. "Mom?" I called, hesitating before jogging after her. She reached the car, ripped the door open, and slammed herself into the driver's seat. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I slid into the passenger seat cautiously. The air inside the car was thick with unspoken rage. I didn't dare say a word. She stared straight ahead, silent for a long moment. Then, finally, she muttered through gritted teeth, "I'm never shopping there again." I let out a slow breath, glancing back at the store one last time. The sign was still there, and I knew, with absolute certainty, she would definitely be back. The drive home was suffocatingly silent. My mother gripped the steering wheel so hard that her knuckles were white, her jaw locked so tightly that I swore I could hear her teeth grinding. The entire time, I sat motionless in the passenger seat, not daring to breathe too loudly, let alone speak. I had seen her mad before. Oh, trust me, I had, but this. This was something else. This wasn't just anger. This was defeat. And the thing about my Karen, is that she doesn't do defeat. Every few minutes, she would inhale sharply, as if she were about to launch into another tirade. But then she'd stop herself, exhaling through her nose in silent, simmering rage. I could practically see the storm of excuses and justifications forming behind her eyes, twisting and shifting, trying to find some way to make this not her fault. We pulled into the driveway, and the second the car was in park, she let out a sharp breath and turned to me with a strained, almost manic smile. "Well," she said, her voice unnervingly high-pitched, "I hope you enjoyed watching your mother get publicly humiliated." I blinked. "What?" She scoffed. "Oh, don't play dumb. You just sat there, letting them talk to me like that." She threw her hands up. "I swear, you're just like your father, no backbone." I wanted to laugh. I really did. Because if anyone in that store had no backbone, it sure as hell wasn't the employees who had shut her down so spectacularly. But I didn't laugh. Not this time. Instead, I exhaled slowly and did something I'd never done before. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Maybe the problem isn't everyone else, maybe just maybe, the problem is you." The second the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Her expression flickered just for a second with something I never thought I'd see on her face. Shock. And then, just as quickly, it was gone. Replaced with cold, bitter disbelief. "Oh," she breathed, her voice trembling. "So that's how it is." She let out a sharp laugh, shaking her head. "You think I'm the bad guy? After everything I do for you?" I didn't answer. Because, really, what was the point? She scoffed again, jerking the door open. "Fine. Bungrateful, see if I care." She stormed into the house, slamming the door behind her. I stayed in the car, staring at the dashboard, my heart pounding. Because for the first time in my life, I realized something. I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little bit. And that was the moment I knew. This was just the beginning.